Today on Upfront, Wisconsin's voter ID law in limbo. Next, Attorney General J.B. Van Hollen on whether an appeal is the law's last best hope for being in effect by the November election. Plus, Van Hollen on his defense of the state's ban on same-sex marriage. Then, are Republican lawmakers waging a war for or against Milwaukee? And the late Governor Patrick Lucey, in his own words, the interview never seen before on television.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Up Front with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Up Front. Top Republicans have acknowledged that it will be difficult, if not virtually impossible, to have voter ID in place in Wisconsin for the November election. This after a federal judge's ruling striking down the law last month. Last week, Wisconsin Attorney General J.B. Van Hollen appealed the ruling, and the Attorney General is here now to explain why. It's good to have you back on the program.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to be here.
Well, let's talk about the whys. Why are you challenging Judge Edelman's ruling?
Well, two reasons. First of all, I think it's very important for courts, if at all possible, to respect the policy judgments of their elected representatives, our legislators and our governor. And essentially, when you're trying to protect the right of the vote, it's very important to protect the right of the people who voted them into office to pass these policies. But secondly, Judge Edelman, I think, is horrifically wrong in the law and in procedure in a number of different ways. First of all, he's interpreted the Voters' Rights Act to indicate that a likelihood of results that would limit the ability of some minorities to vote is unconstitutional or illegal. The law says that only if it results in, and he's based his decision on likelihood. So it's really contrary to what the Voting Rights Act says. Secondly, he's made a ruling that almost unequivocally states that voter ID can never be constitutional. And our United States Supreme Court has clearly ruled in the Crawford and Indiana case to the contrary.
A lot of voter ID cases around the country, a number of them being challenged. You believe that because the Supreme Court, for example, ruled on the Indiana case, you believe that that's a good precedent. You think that's something that will stand in this kind of challenge?
I do, and it's an extraordinarily good precedent, especially in the challenge to Judge Edelman's ruling, because Judge Edelman essentially ignored it. The Supreme Court's not going to take too kindly to being ignored if this case ever gets that far again. I'm guessing he'll be overturned by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, and since the precedent is so clear, I don't think the Supreme Court will ever even take this case unless they have to rule on the voting rights issue, because he's made an interpretation of the law there that nobody has dared do before, and so it's a case of first impression. That aspect of this decision may get it to the United States Supreme Court.
Is it safe to say this law will not be in effect based on what you know, about the legal process? This law will not be in effect for the November election?
I think that's probably safe to say for a couple of reasons. First of all, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals is not going to rule on this case before the election, so they would have to stay the injunction. Which is a possibility. But even if they do so, we still have this law enjoined in the state courts. And until the state Supreme Court rules on parallel cases, the case is still enjoined anyway. So we've got two parallel tracks that we have to follow.
You're defending the state's ban on same-sex marriage. That's being challenged by a number of couples now. Give me your sense of why you feel so strongly that that law needs to be defended.
It's our Constitution. I take an oath when I take office as Attorney General to defend the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin. Our voters have amended our Constitution to include that provision. It's my requirement, it's my obligation to defend our Constitution. If Attorney General cannot defend the Constitution of their own state, then there really is nobody who can.
Do you disagree with that? Because there are some, as you know, Attorney General candidates who are saying, I would not defend that law. I completely disagree with it. I don't think it's an incorrect interpretation of the law. We don't think it's legal.
I think that's irresponsible. I think that those sorts of people should never hold the office of Attorney General, because it's not their policy decisions or what they think that matters. It is their job to defend the Constitution if they believe there is any meritorious legal basis to do so. Even if they think the policy is wrong or their legal argument is weak, it's still their job to defend it.
How confident are you that you'll be able to defend this law? I mean, if you look at what's happening around the country, and a lot of courts around the country, these laws banning same-sex marriage are being struck down. Why do you feel Wisconsin will be different?
Well, I don't necessarily feel it will be different, but it's still my obligation. I do believe the other courts have ruled inappropriately. The major case, the DOMA case that the United States Supreme Court ruled on, that so many of these other circuits are relying on, really was a case that was discussing the proper jurisdiction, that these are issues that are up to the states, not up to the federal government. But so many of these courts have taken it to be a ruling against these sorts of laws, and we don't think it's anything of the sort. But those arguments have lost across the country. I certainly won't be at all surprised if we lose in our court here as well. Ultimately, some of these cases are going to make it to the United States Supreme Court. Some cases are ahead of ours in Wisconsin, so ours probably won't be there first. Supreme Court is going to be able to rule on these cases directly and take the interpretation away.
When you look at how public sentiment has changed on this issue, and it's changed considerably in a fairly short period of time, when you look at what's happening around Wisconsin in places like Illinois, Minnesota, and Iowa, do you ever feel like 10 years from now we'll look back on this and say we were on the wrong side of history?
You know, I don't think so, because you can look at just about any legislative change or changes in public sentiment, and it has changed on a lot of things pretty dramatically. That's the way our legislative system works. As public sentiment changes, we elect different legislators, and they change the law. So if public sentiment has changed on this, it's not the court's job to become a super legislature and say, okay, we're going to throw out this law because the people don't agree with it anymore. It's the people's job to pass a new constitutional amendment to eliminate the one that was there in the first place, if there really are the votes there and in the legislature to do so. That's how a democracy works.
When you sat down today, I said, how are you doing? You said, you're doing great. You're not in a campaign. You're not running for re-election. People are wondering about your future. What are you thinking about at this moment in time?
You know, it's so satisfying not to be running because I still am very, very busy in doing the job, and I will be until the bitter end. I love the work of government. Politics can be so divisive and exhausting, and being around the family is very satisfying. I am tired of it. Want to be around my family some more. Not certain what I'm going to do in the future, but what it is going to entail, I guarantee you, is more time with my children, which is the #1 priority in my life.
A less public life.
Absolutely.
All right. Attorney General J.B. Van Hollen, good to have you back on the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Later on up front, the remarkable life of the late Governor Patrick Lucey. But first, Republican lawmakers showing Milwaukee a little love, or not so much. The lawmaker who put the question front and center and a Democratic counterpart square off. Next on Up Front.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by American Transmission Company.